I am all fired up.
I'm excited to hear you guys' thoughts on some of these things.
We got to move on before I completely emotionally mentally unravel here. All right, you're good.
Welcome back into another episode of RoundballRadio, where we talk about basketball, a little bit of pop culture, and everything else in between. We will do our best to appear well-informed, but you may find that we are more often passionate and irrational. I'm going to be your host today, Sam Hadler, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Dylan Gorman and JT Cunningham. What's going on, JT?
Not much, man. I'm just happy to be back, talking some basketball. I've been spending all week doing taxes, so this sounds much better to me, but might be biased.
It's always a good little break to talk some basketball, get away from the normal grind a little bit. Dylan, how about you? What's going on?
Yeah, I'm great. I actually just got back from San Diego on Tuesday. You can probably tell by my tan that it went really well. And we're also going to
Arizona. Pink glow you have.
Yeah, that nice burn. But we're going to Arizona next week. I just cannot wait for that. The guys' trip, the Open, and nothing could be better. So I'm
going to be
excited.
Blast.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I think the zoo is gonna be the most exciting part.
Yeah, Sam, are you waiting for us for the zoo, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so we're going to the zoo Thursday morning, correct?
Yes, but you kept saying you were going Tuesday. You're like, oh, screw it, I don't need to go with you guys.
Dude, JT, you've been to the Phoenix Zoo, right?
Yes, it's great. That's why I want to go.
I know. You can't blame me for wanting to go Tuesday
if you want to go
Tuesday
both,
and
that's
Thursday,
up to you, but I wasn't about to let you sabotage my trip.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm totally in on that. Also, I was gonna say, Dylan, too. You got a light too. I can see you got a nice glow to you.
Oh man,
look good, man.
A little vacation does the body good, does the heart good, and seeing the guys in a couple weeks. I mean, I'm just excited about it. I mean, I'm gonna say though, shout out Pat Kelly for not wanting to go to the zoo.
Yeah,
I'm not sure
hates
if you know
animals.
He's not a zoo guy. He keeps saying he's a zoo guy. He's not a zoo guy.
He's been to all the zoos.
He's been to all the zoos.
That's so funny. So, no, it's going to be a good time. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. But we'll get into some of our topics, guys. But before we do, I'd like to just kind of run down what we'll be talking about today. So we'll get back to our All Fired Up segment. It's been a couple weeks since we've touched on that. So I'm excited. I hope something's fired you guys up over the last 2 weeks. We'll talk the All-Star picks, the All-Star game coming up, obviously. We're going to do a little draft to select the starters for both the West and the East, and we'll talk a little bit about the reserves. And then we're going to play GM. So we're going to talk about the Timberwolves and what we would do if we were the GM and how we would approach the roster moving forward. And then we'll do our outros, and that will be it for today. But let's go ahead and get into it, guys. We'll start with the All Fired Up podcast or segment. As I mentioned, it's been a couple weeks since we did this last, so I imagine something's has definitely got you fired up over the last couple of weeks. Dylan, what is it?
All right, so I want to remind you guys. You guys remember from elementary through early high school? I always had a book in my hand. I was a big reader at the time.
Usually a fantasy novel with some sort of lord or knight on the front. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So during quarantine, I've had to find some new hobbies. One is podcasting, the other is reading. It's also helped me kind of sleep at night, and it's a little bit of a benefit. But I started reading my favorite series of all time, The Wheel of Time. It's 14 books, a really big, epic sci-fi fantasy novel series. And I came across it a couple months ago, but I came across it again yesterday. They created it into a TV show on Amazon. So I am so fired up for that show. I'm a little nervous because Game of Thrones set such a high bar for a fantasy series, but this book series it's amazing, Sam. I love it. I've read, this is my third time reading through it. I'm on book 5 of the 14 for the third time, and I'm just so excited for the series. I'm all fired up about it.
I'm happy for you because you've always been big into that. I just personally can't get into it. I never got into Game of Thrones, so it's not something that's up my alley. But sounds right. It sounds like it's right up your alley, though.
Yeah, you're not a nerd, so it checks out.
I don't know. I would argue that, but JT, how about you? What's got you all fired up?
Well, you actually told me that I should use it for this segment, and it was absolutely perfect because sort of in the same vein of Dylan, of them doing something with a sort of a franchise that I love. News broke. I guess it was almost 2 weeks ago now that they were bringing back, and I'm going to show the tweet on our stream here, but NCAA football, the video game, is coming back.
Yeah.
And my God, that was like the best news I could possibly imagine. So NCAA football 14, this is what makes me worried though. So first of all, I heard the news and was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then I started thinking, well, I hope it's not just like a reskin of Madden. Because I don't know if you remember like the last like NCAA football games, but they were like much faster and like much more like video gamey than Madden was at the time. Madden was a slower paced version of a football game. So I hope it's not just like completely sim. I hope it's like actually a fun video game still. And if it's not, I'll still play NCAA football 14. But anyway, that coming back got me all jazzed up. Plus, I just want to plug that it is currently one of the 2 best sports video games of all time. The other one is MVP Baseball 2005. Although I actually heard other news about MVP Baseball, well, not about the show. So first of all, the show has been an exclusive to PlayStation for like 7 years. I've had an Xbox for like the last 5. I just actually ended up picking up a Series X like this last week. And the show is coming to Xbox for the first time ever. And they're bringing over one of my favorite pieces of MVP Baseball that I've been super confused why it hasn't been any of the newer video games, but they are allowing you to create your own stadium, which I think is like super dope if you can just make like the weirdest, like craziest stadiums that you can. Like it's such a simple thing, but like it makes it so fun. MVP Baseball had that career mode that basically let you just like start with it looked like a minor league stadium, and then as soon as like you'd sort of build up like your finances and stuff, you could add stands and you could add like amenities to the stadium, like pools and stuff. Like it was awesome. So the fact that that's coming back too got me all jazzed up. It's been kind of a sports video game type of week. That. Oh my God, it's amazing.
That was such a great feature.
Oh my God, it's the best.
That's so awesome. But yeah, I've had a PlayStation now. So the show, yeah, it's coming to Xbox. You said, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It's been kind of like I haven't played it for a couple years now, because it like pretty much stays the same each iteration. I think that's kind of like the knock on it.
It's basically every sports video game at this point. They're just
that's true.
Yearly roster updates,
but the fact that they're adding that stadium upgrade in there, that's pretty sweet. And then yeah, I mean, but back to like college football, man. That's the best game of all time, hands down. Like
so good.
It's been the most requested game for how many years now? So much so that like there were like some companies going off brand and just trying to create a football game for those people who are like requesting it. So
I want to, and I'll just share two like memories of that game, or like my favorite parts. So like I don't know how often you played like the sort of like coach. It was like basically franchise mode for NCAA football, where you are like the coach and you are building up like your
you recruit and everything, right?
Yeah, you recruit and everything, but you have basically like an RPG skill tree where you like you improve like your recruiting and like your on-field bonuses and stuff. Like I don't know how many times I played through like an entire like 30-year career and like maxed out all those skills and like just built like this absolute powerhouse. It was so fun.
Yep.
And then the other the other memory I have of it is in college we used to play, because it was actually 14 would have come out like our sophomore junior year.
Yeah, right.
And we were like, hanging out around the dorms and stuff, and we'd play. Me and my roommates at the time, we'd like create a road to glory, with a random quarterback on a random team, and then we'd play through his entire career and just switch off every possession. Like it was so dope. It was so fun. You get so mad when people like throw a pick and get so pumped when somebody throw a 70-yard bomb. It was amazing.
Everyone's just jacked. Yeah. I love it.
I love how they're calling it the college football game instead of the NCAA football. There's like they find every way not to
disassociate for sure.
Yeah, take the not pay the players. So it's smart.
Yeah, hopefully like the recruiting and stuff, it was so easy where you could take like a team like Akron or something, and you could make them into a powerhouse after a couple years.
I was basically always choosing the Gophers because that's just like this unattainable dream to make them an unstoppable powerhouse. But
yeah,
oh man, it was the best.
I've definitely led the Gophers to some national championships over the years. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, JT. That's that's a good use of this segment. But for me, I'm actually a little disappointed that I'm the only one who's fired up about the Open. I mean, come on, we're like 2 weeks out. I guess if we have another pod next week, maybe it'd be a better time to use it. But man, I'm so excited. Going down to Arizona, or I'm going to stay in Utah for a couple days this week, starting on Friday or Saturday. I haven't decided yet. Going to spend a few days in Utah, then I'm going to head down to Scottsdale. Can't wait for you guys to come down. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. So.
Hey, Sam, you want to explain the Open to our viewers?
Yeah, it might be. So, all right. How would you guys explain it? So the way I would explain it is we have 2 events every year. One is the Minot Cup that happens in summer in July up north Wisconsin at my cabin. And then this year we've added an event called the Open, which will be hosted in a new location down south every year. And basically what we do is our group of guys, we get together. There's 6 of us, and 6 of us for this Open. There's 7 of us at the Minot Cup the last couple of years. But we compete for like 2 days. We have 3 events per day, and one of the events for both the Open and the Cup is always golf. So we golf for 2 days, and then we have 2 other events that we compete in, and then we kind of keep track of points, and the winner at the end is obviously the one who has the most points. So Minot Cup, we did 2 versus 2 versus 2, or 2 versus 2 versus 3, and then here in the Open, we're going to do 3 versus 3. So this is the inaugural event for the Open, so there's a lot on the line. I'm just looking forward to it.
I'm so pumped up. It's gonna be awesome. Warm weather, a zoo, golf.
It's gonna be nice just to get out of the weather, if nothing else, and then
this polar vortex is killing me.
2 straight weeks of 0 degrees. Yeah, it's a nightmare, but
yeah, it's terrible.
It's gonna be beautiful down there.
And it's below 0 in Colorado now too. So I'm starting to kind of look forward to the nicer weather. We've had it for a while down here, but now it's starting to get colder. So excited to be down in Arizona. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into our first topic of the day, which is going to be the All-Star Game draft. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with the Western Conference, and we're going to go kind of round robin and select our starting 5. And then we'll discuss a little bit about the reserves, who we think should be there, who we think shouldn't be there. And then we'll kind of do the same with the East as well. So the order that we're going to go in for the Western Conference is going to begin with me. Excuse me. I read this wrong. So it's actually Dylan. You're going to have the first pick in the Western Conference. I'm going to have the second, and JT, you will have the third. And then we'll flip that for the Eastern Conference. So with that being said, Dylan, you got the first pick. Who is your first starter in the Western Conference lineup?
Well, Sam, it can only be one guy.
Oh, God.
I mean, you know who it is. I mean, I'm picking LeBron. I mean, they have the second best record in the league. He's a driving force. He hasn't missed a game yet. He's probably the leader of the MVP at this point of the year. So I'll go LeBron. Super excited about it. He's probably going to win that All-Star Game MVP too, along with the regular MVP, along with Finals MVP. It's just going to be LeBron's year this year.
Okay, and what position are you going to put him at, Dylan?
Oh man, that's a good question. I just put him at forward because I feel like that's what he usually is designated at. Although he, runs the point like most of the game, so you can put him in guard or forward. But I'm going to put him in as forward.
All right, so it looks like I have the second pick. And yeah, Dylan, that was the obvious first pick. There was no other answer to that.
No.
I'm going to go actually Nikola Jokic. He's just having a phenomenal year. The Nuggets aren't kind of where I think they want to be, but they're starting to play a little bit better now. They're 14-11. 6-4 in their last 10. But he's just having an MVP caliber season. He's clearly the only pick for center, I think, in the West. So I'm going to go Nikola Jokic. JT, you're on the clock.
I'm going to go
any thoughts? Any thoughts on that pick before you pick JT?
No.
Or are you guys all in agreement? Okay.
No, I would have gone second. And 26, 11, and 8 for center. I mean, it's his number. And then Murray's really taken a step back, or I guess maybe regressed back to the mean of his career. Maybe the bubble was kind of outlier. So Jokic has been phenomenal this year, and he's carried the team. Their team has not been the same.
Yeah, it's been I wouldn't say Murray is definitely regressed from the bubble, but he's back to just averaging what he was last year, which, I mean, the Nuggets were a great team last year, but he put up crazy numbers all bubble, and it's been the Jokic show in Denver, and he has absolutely carried that team, and obviously like another stacked Western Conference. But
hey, just a quick question for you guys. Do you think that the bubble is an aberration to his career, or do you think that he has just had a rough patch this year so far?
I would say, real quick, JT, I would say the latter, Dylan, because I mean, I think if we just look at the bubble last year, we saw a lot of like outlier performances from players. TJ Warren, like Devin Booker even played out of his mind. And so I think it's such a small sample size when you look at like his full career. This is kind of where you should expect him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still think he'll progress. He's still just 23 years old. I think it was sort of well documented before the season started that this is the shortest turnaround for a professional sport in history, at least American history.
Don't tell LeBron James that.
I mean, LeBron's a monster, and there's no other way to put it. But like Murray had to kill himself every single game. Every single series was a 7-game series, and he's probably playing 40 minutes a game. So I don't know if it's just his legs are still not where they need to be. If he's still trying to just find his way, maybe it is sort of just like a bubble withdrawal almost. He's like missing kind of that environment. I don't know what it is, but I still think he's got plenty of room to improve. And obviously, you don't play like that in the NBA playoffs and not have that in you long term. It was too big of a sample size. It wasn't one series. It was like 20 games for him. So I'm not worried about it. But
well, the one thing though to become like a superstar in the league is consistency. It's about doing it every single night. So even if it's the playoffs, like that's great, but you also need to do it during the regular season. You need to do it over extended years, and he hasn't shown that consistency yet, and I think he has a potential.
It'll be interesting to see what happens over the latter half of the season if he ends up picking it up while they're making sort of a playoff push. We'll see, but
yeah, they need him to
And I'm jotting these down, so we'll see how close our rosters are to the actual rosters when they come out. And then I think I've also took down our early season predictions that we had before the year. So we'll have to revisit those at some time too. But let's move on with this. JT, who do you have at that third pick?
Third pick, I'm going to go with Sam's favorite player, Steph Curry. So he's been so good. And honestly, it is so annoying to watch how the media has declared Andrew Wiggins like a reclaimed project for the Warriors. Now all of a sudden he's a completely different player. He's still Andrew Wiggins, dude. And Oubre has actually turned it on lately. But with how much he's struggled through the year, and that roster is not a good roster, and Steph's been playing out of his mind, and I think he deserves to be that third pick.
Yeah, I will say though, for Wiggins, the big knock on him in Minnesota is he wasn't doing the little things, and he has been doing more of the little things with the Warriors. He has been playing better defense. He's been passing better. He's been moving a little better. I mean, he's still taking the shit mid-range shots that he's always had with Minnesota. He's still inefficient, but I think he has done things to improve for their team.
I don't know if that was like the biggest knock on him in Minnesota, because we expected him to be so much more. It wasn't just like we wanted him to be a little things kind of player. It was like, why are you not the second coming of LeBron James for a few years? And then I was like, okay, he's definitely not that. What can he be? And we still can't figure that out.
Yeah, but if he was averaging, I mean, there's a couple years he was averaging between 20 and 24.
Sure.
If he would have been playing good defense with that type of production, scoring production, like he would have been an all-star or close to an all-star. And that was like his biggest thing was he didn't play defense. Wasn't a great passer. Didn't move the ball.
I've seen some statistics that have claimed he's been a really improved on-ball defender, and obviously like his block numbers have indicated that. But I've still seen plenty of dialogue going on about how he is still a very poor, team defender at the end of the day. So I guess it depends on who you ask, but
yeah, for sure.
And JT, I think this is going to be attached to me for like my whole life, like this, that I'm a Steph Curry hater, but it's just not true. He's not like my favorite player in the world or anything, but I absolutely agree with you that he's the best point guard in the league, or at least he should be the top point guard in the All-Star game this year. I think he's the most valuable. So I actually like the pick.
I'm glad you're able to admit that to yourself.
All right. Do you guys want to go snake draft, or do we want to go back to Dylan?
Go back to Dylan.
Okay. All right, Dylan. We got Steph Curry at guard. We got LeBron James so far as one of the forward positions, and then Nikola Jokic at center.
I'll go with Kawhi at the other forward spot. He's having another awesome year for the Clippers. He's got the Clippers back on track. They're third in the West. They're only like a game behind the Lakers, only 2 games behind the Jazz. He's putting up just monster numbers, playing better defense, and he seems to have got better at the playmaking part of the game, where his assists are up to almost 5 per game, and he's running the offense, and that's a new wrinkle to his game. And he's always been a great scorer, great defender, but he's really upping his playmaking, which has been really helpful for their team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he would be my pick too. So far, we have the 4 that I would have picked if I would have done this individually.
Yep.
And then I got the last pick, and I have to fill out a guard. So this one where we might differ a little bit, I'm going to go Dame. I just think that I look at him versus Luka, and I just look at where their teams are in the standings, and that's kind of where I'm basing it right now. I just feel a little disappointed in the Mavs. They've really struggled this year, and I know they had some injuries. Kristaps been out, and some of their supporting cast hasn't played great, so you can't put this all on Luka. But, I mean, Dame's had an amazing year, and he's got his team right now, I think 5th in the standings, if I remember correctly. Yep, so 5th. So they're 15-10. They're playing well. I just give him the slight edge right now over Luka.
Oh, I agree. I mean, they have similar production, and then they've actually had probably more injuries than the Mavs. I mean, CJ's been out since like 12. Yeah. Nurkic, Collins, their whole team is like scrapped together, and he's the only thing that's helping them win games. So I'm really impressed with him. I would have gone the same route.
I probably would have gone Luka, but I slightly disagree. I don't think they have similar production. I mean, Luka most games puts up. I mean, you kind of lauded Jokic for his numbers. I mean, he puts up kind of similarly ridiculous stats most games. So I was struggling between those two too, but I felt like Luka's production was almost too ludicrous to ignore and to keep out. But it's toss up.
Yeah, it is kind of a toss up, but I mean, he's averaging. I'm looking at Dame right now. He's got a PER of 26.4. He's averaging 29 a game, 7.2 assists, 4.4 rebounds. I mean, so you're like you said, it's kind of like a toss-up. It's not like he's obviously Luka's always going to have tremendous production. Let me pull him up real quick. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of like my determining factor was just kind of how their teams have performed this year. And I just feel like Dame's just been a little more valuable than what Luka has. But again, we're splitting hairs, so. Yeah, either way, I think we all agree that the next guy up is probably Luka or AD, one of the two.
I'd put Luka for sure, but
yeah, I put Luka too.
Yeah. Okay. You guys want to talk a little bit about the reserves?
Yeah.
Who are some of the key reserves? Yeah, that you picked in the West.
Well, there's a lot of locks there. I thought there's only 2 spots that I really had open on mine. I had Gobert, Mitchell, Davis, Luka, and Paul George as other 5 locks. So I had 2 guys for the last, or I had about 10 guys for the last 2 spots. I picked Chris Paul as one spot, but I don't really want to talk about him. My other spot I took was Conley. I think Conley has been just stupendous this year. If you look at the Jazz, obviously they're the best team in the league, best net rating, best I think defense, and top 5 offense. And if you look at kind of all the players on their team, they have similar production as last year, except for Conley. Like Conley's taken up a notch. He's really led the offense, like putting them into their sets, getting Gobert the ball. He's been a great defender like usual. And then if you actually look at like all the advanced stats, like Conley's at the top of the league for like almost every single one. So beyond that, he also has never made the All-Star game, and he's been a great player in this league for 10 plus years. So I think he finally deserves it, and he's on the best team in the league, and he arguably has maybe been the best player on the best team. So I think he finally deserves that berth in the All-Star game.
So you have Rudy. Do you have Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah. So I actually have 3 Jazz players.
3 Jazz?
Okay. Yeah, 3 Jazz players. Because like Gobert and Mitchell, I mean, they're kind of like the driving force on the defense and offense for the team. So I had those guys as locks, but I think Conley deserves that last spot.
JT?
I actually agree with most of them. Well, you had Booker in there too, right?
I don't have Booker.
Oh, you didn't have Booker. You had Paul instead.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I was between those two. I actually put down Booker. I felt like he'd been really good, especially lately. And I went with Gobert, Davis, George, and Mitchell as well. Where I differed, and I kind of struggled rounding out those last couple. So Booker was a bit of a question mark. And then I actually finished it with Zion. Just because, I mean, it's an all-star event. It's a fan event. You want, your exciting players there. And Zion, as much as we've kind of sort of picked apart the Pelicans for how they've used him, amazingly efficient year. I mean, I think he just scored like 36 points the other day on like 14 to 15 shooting.
Yep.
It's crazy. So I look at him and I couldn't keep him off when I felt like there were so many other just like questionable inclusions there too. So.
Well, I think Van Gundy hurt us because he started using him in like the pick and roll.
It was literally right after that podcast.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like they started giving him the ball and giving him the pick and roll. And it's like, man, I know he's a fan of the pod. That's pretty exciting to hear.
This is where he goes to get his news, like around the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's up over 60% shooting. Like, man, Zion. So I'm kind of with JT. I put Zion in. The whole Devin Paul, I'm kind of on Dylan's side on this one. I'd favor Paul slightly. I think he's just more like invaluable towards their team and then towards winning. He's taken over a lot of the playmaking responsibilities and has allowed Devin Booker kind of just to roam around and play his game. Whereas last year, Devin Booker had to take more of that responsibility, the playmaking responsibility. So I think that's led to just more success for the Suns. I'm going to favor Paul slightly in that he's also a lot older. It's just nice to get him back into the All-Star game, to be quite honest.
Well, if you look at their team too, they're playing at one of the slowest paces. They have like one of the top 5 defenses in the league, and that's not coming from Devin Booker. Like that's coming from Chris Paul. So to me, he's the driving force, and he's like the reason they're playing the way they're playing, and they're winning because of that. So to me, I just feel like he's more like Booker has better stats. Chris Paul is the driving force behind their team. That's why I put Chris Paul on instead.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I really wanted Paul to go to the Lakers. Because I still saw a lot of Paul. Like he's still got so much. He's still a valuable player in this league. Like people were kind of questioning that, but last year I think he kind of put those questions to rest because he overachieved last year with the OKC Thunder. He had a great year. But I thought that was a good pickup for the Suns, and obviously they're right now 4th in the standings. So
he went on that plant-based diet, and he just changed his life around.
Tom Brady diet.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, he's playing. He's having a great year. Another guy you mentioned, Dylan, was Paul George. He's having a phenomenal year.
I had actually thought about putting George in the starting lineup, and then I went and looked in it because like George's shooting splits are crazy. And then like I went
almost
and looked
50,
at Kawhi.
50, 90.
Yeah, I looked at Kawhi, and he was basically doing the same thing. And I'm like, whoa. And Kawhi's obviously an elite defender, so it's like, well, how do I keep Kawhi out of the starting lineup then?
Well, Paul George is a lead defender too.
Well,
That's
true.
But for me, like Kawhi just played more games, and so that's what came down to for me. I mean, they're basically like it's kind of the same-ish numbers. I mean, they're both been unbelievable.
Yeah. AD, Paul George, all these guys, Zion, Rudy, Donovan Mitchell for me. I probably put Chris Paul over Booker. And then some guys who I think are right there, who I guess still have some time to maybe work themselves into the roster would be, well, CJ's been out, but I think he's had just a phenomenal year up until his injury. So it's hard to keep him out of like an all-star game. And then the other guy who I'm definitely not going to put in, but who's been playing lights out lately and actually has his team playing really well, De'Aaron Fox. I mean, he's playing lights out, and he's a guy who I had serious questions about. But the last couple of weeks, he's looking like he's finally answering some of those questions. So he's a guy that, like, on my radar, but I do have him sitting on the outside looking in for now. But
the Kings, all the talk about them early on was their historically bad defense, and then now over the past couple of weeks they put together a nice little stretch. So it could be deserved too if they kind of keep it rolling. But
he's been really good. He's been really good. He's seems to be taking a step forward.
Yep. All right, guys, let's jump over to the Eastern Conference. We're going to go reverse order this time. So we'll start with JT. I'll go second. Dylan, you'll go third. So JT, you got the first pick.
There's kind of a trifecta, I think, at the forward position. But I'm going to go first. I'll take Embiid.
Okay.
He's been an absolute game changer. I mean, the way he dominates in the paint. I mean, we've seen it. Like, we just played the Sixers not all that long ago, and like, it's amazing. You think about how big a guy like Karl Anthony Towns is. I don't think Towns played that game, but Joel Embiid is like a living giant. It's unbelievable the way he controls a basketball court. At that space of the floor, it's unbelievable, and he's been incredibly productive, and the Sixers have been one of the best teams in the East as well. So I think you got to put him number one.
And he's a top MVP candidate right now as well. You gotta, front runner.
Well, yeah, JT, I think I mentioned this last week, but I went to the game with Towns and Towns and Embiid, and Embiid was so much bigger than Towns. Like I couldn't believe it. Yeah, like he's at least like 3 inches taller, and he probably has 20, 30 pounds on him. And Towns is a big dude. Like he's a legit 7 feet. So Embiid, like, listed at 7 feet is kind of a joke. Like, he's at least 7'2", 7'3".
Yeah.
And he's a monster. Offense, defense, he's been awesome.
Kind of looking back at how his career started too, and like how it ended at Kansas, I'm honestly, if you would have told me this is where we were at, with Joel Embiid 5 years later or whatever, I don't know if I'd believe you, because like he just seemed like it was going to be another sort of Greg Oden, what could have been case with his lower body issues he was having, and for him to just kind of, he rests every once in a while and stuff too, but he's actually been fairly decently durable. Just unbelievable talent and unbelievable, obviously, physical prowess inside too.
Hey, would you guys take Wiggins or Embiid?
Oh, God.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it wasn't our pick, but it still hurts.
Yeah. I had some of those questions. Like, I didn't know what type of like longevity we'd get from Embiid, but I mean, by all accounts, he's been healthy and he's playing, like JT mentioned, most games. So, yeah, I think he's a great number one pick, JT, and obviously the clear center for the Eastern Conference. So, all right, I'm gonna take another obvious pick, just guy you can't leave out of the starting lineup. I'm gonna go Giannis. I'm not gonna try to say his last name on the pod, but I mean, there's not much to say other than he's just one of the best players in the league. I do have questions. I know I mentioned on previous pods about his ability to take it home, but there's no denying like his spot on this roster. So I'm gonna go Giannis in one of the forward positions. And the Bucks are playing a lot better lately too. So they started out a little slow. I was a little concerned, but I look at the trio of Giannis, Drew, and Middleton, and probably the best two-way trio in the league. And they're getting great bench production. Giannis has been the leader, so yeah, I'm gonna go Giannis.
Well, they've been blowing people out, and then with those three on the floor, they've just been awesome. So I think it's gonna be hopefully a different playoffs for them. I mean, I'm kind of cheering for them a little bit.
Me too. I am. I just, like I said, I have my doubts, but I really enjoy watching them. So hopefully they can prove me wrong.
Yeah.
All right, Dylan, who do you got with the third pick?
I got Durant. So he's been obviously one of the best players in the league. He's missed some games due to like safety protocol, but there's no denying he's been one of the top forwards in the East. So I'm going Durant. It's a pretty easy pick for me.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. There's no. So these first three, obviously, I picked Giannis, but Joel and Kevin I had in mind too. So it's pretty. I'm all on board with that pick. All right, JT, we'll go back to you with the fourth pick. Now things start to get a little dicey with those two guard positions. Who you got for the first one?
Well, it kind of ends up just going back to my justification for choosing Doncic over Lillard, which is sometimes production is just too prolific to keep out of the starting lineup. And that's kind of how Bradley Beal. So
yep.
I looked at the East starters for guards, or I looked at the selection of East guards, and I was kind of like taken aback by like you think about the starters in the Western Conference, and Curry, Doncic, and Lillard I think are pretty interchangeable, but you have like kind of like three clear-cut top choices, and you look at the starters or the potential guards in the East, and it's like a lot of guys you could choose, but when you look at those three forwards, you're like, these top two don't deserve to be in that same class, regardless of who you pick. But I ended up choosing Beal at the top just because, I mean, he's been a lethal scorer this year for a surprisingly terrible Wizards team, but great scoring nonetheless and great offensive production all around. Especially with Westbrook either being really ineffective or out of most games. So.
Yeah, and I actually have him in mind too, so I have no argument for that. He's just been too productive.
I didn't have him in there just because they won 6 games, but I mean I see that, and if you look at the team, I mean their team's terrible. I mean Westbrook has been bad. They're $82 million man. What's his name? The
Davis
shooter.
Bertans.
Bertans. Yeah, hasn't been very effective. Their team's been terrible.
All right, so it looks like I have the last pick. That puts some pressure on me. So I'm in between a couple guys here, and the person I'm going to choose for this one, because JT took Bradley Beal, and actually this would round out the exact starting five that I had, is James Harden. I mean, I know. It's not the sexiest pick, but I mean, he leads the league in assists. He's like the point guard of that team now moving forward, and he's too talented and too good to keep out of a starting five, I think. There's a couple guys who would be nice stories that you can say would come into the starting five here, but I'm just going to go with James Harden because I think he's the best of that bunch. So.
Yeah, I had Harden in there, but I actually had Jaylen Brown instead of Beal.
Yeah, that's the guy who make a nice story. He's had a really good year. But I have him as like the next man out.
Yeah, no, he's been spectacular. I mean, he'd be my next draft pick. I mean, he's like 26, 8, and like 3 or something, and great splits. I mean, he's really just developed as a player.
Yeah. So we were arguing. Sorry, Dylan, but I just want to interject here for a second. We were arguing a couple of weeks ago about not being able to teach shooting, and Jaylen Brown is a great example of being able to teach shooting. He was not a good shooter at Cal in his 1 year there, and he has developed into like a really well-rounded offensive player.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I was gonna say is like he was a really mechanical player, and he's gotten the feel for the game. I mean, he just worked, and now he has intuitive, sensitive players on the floor. Before he didn't, he was like a straight line driver, and that was like my big criticism was he wasn't creative. He didn't make plays for teammates, and he's starting to do that along with the shooting efficiency you talked about. So he's really taken a huge step forward this year.
Yeah, and then another thing that worked in his favor this year is he had the opportunity more so than in previous years with the Kemba missing the start of the season and then Jason Tatum going out. So he had to handle more of those playmaking responsibilities, and he's fit the bill like big time. I don't know how much he's improved JT as a shooter because when he came in, he was already. I mean, I felt like even at a young age coming into the league, he was still pretty good.
He shot about 33% on low volume, and now he's above 40% on high volume. So I think that's much better.
Well, in year 2, he shot 39% on 4.4 attempts.
And you regressed in year 3.
It's true. It's true. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, all in all, he's definitely improved. There's no denying that. So he deserves consideration for that starting spot. For me, I just have him kind of as the next man out. And he's a good two-way player too, by the way, which is obviously important. So let's talk a little bit about the reserves. We obviously kind of just mentioned that. We have, I think, the 3 guys that we were between, Harden, Beal, Brown. That's kind of who we would talk about being in the starting lineup or our first man off the bench. But who are some other guys that you guys think deserve to be one of the first guys off the bench?
I'll go kind of like locks. I think obviously if we don't have Brown in there, like he's a lock. Like Middleton's a lock. Tatum's a lock. Kyrie, I know he's been like in our lineup a little bit, but he's just been too good to keep out of there. So there's actually like
Colin Sexton.
If he didn't drop off the last couple of weeks, maybe. But yeah, there's like 3 spots, and there's so many players. Like here's my list of players. I had Bam, Drew Holiday, Ben Simmons, Sabonis, Tobias, Brogdon, Hayward, Van Fleet, Butler, Trey, Levine, JT Levine. I have him on my list.
Thank you.
He's been, he was actually one of my last man off like the All-Star list.
How can? He's obviously got to make a list though. That shouldn't be JT. You shouldn't be saying thank you for that because he should be much higher on your list. I mean,
I agree.
No, he wasn't in the top 12. He was probably like 15th, and I mean that goes. I mean, what you guys have him in your top 12 for real?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Really? Okay.
He's a 50, 40, 90 shooter, averaging 28 a game. If you look at the number of players in the league and I know you say it occurs in a vacuum, but I think that's just bogus, biased crap from you. But if you look at the list of players that put up those kind of numbers, it is perennial all-pro players and Zach LaVine. And you can't tell me that it's just some random outlier. At some point, you have to concede that he is a good basketball player.
I did, but he's not better than he's not an all-star. I'm not saying he's top 12. He's probably like I'm said 15. Like that's 2 spots out, dude. Like that's still an awesome player, like an awesome guy. There's a lot of other good players.
Let's look at it this way, Dylan. Name some of the guys who you have in front of LaVine.
Oh, I have Bam in there. I have Ben Simmons, and then I actually have.
I have Simmons on my list anywhere.
Oh well, I don't know why you wouldn't have him on your list anywhere. he's been really good. But and then I had it between so for me it was so it was actually the last one. I had Beal, Trey, Fred, and then Levine. And I actually went with I had Beal in there already, sorry. So I went with Fred VanVleet as my last starter. And if you look at like
starter?
No, in the reserve. Sorry.
Starter,
yeah. Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. As a reserve, yeah. I mean, he's averaging like 27 and like 3. He plays defense. He's obviously being an impact player in like the postseason, and I'd rather have him on my team than LaVine. That's just like what it comes down to. I mean, they have similar-ish production, and I think he's just more effective as a player and as a winner. So.
JT.
And I also think, and by the way, just like every single like advanced stat like says that too. So I don't think it's like that big of a crazy thing to say.
I don't know, but advanced stats have their own biases too. You look at the rosters that LaVine plays with, and their roster, they've been missing Markkanen for most of the year, playing with a rookie in Patrick Williams, who's been good, but he's a rookie. Kobe White's been kind of Kobe White. I mean, I don't know.
No. Hey, all I'm saying is I'm splitting hairs. At this point, I think all those 4 players are really close, right? So which guy would I rather have in the postseason? I'd rather have Fred VanVleet than LaVine. That's just what it comes down to.
I don't know. That's not really what an all-star team should be, though. I don't know that you should be considering sort of like intrinsic value in high-pressure situations. It's like, how have they performed and what have they been this year? That's what an all-star should be.
But that's what I'm saying is like I think they're that close that like what else do you go by? So that was my tiebreaker for those 2. I'm not saying that like Levine hasn't. I mean, I think they've been so close as production wise and as value to their teams that that's what I went with. So I'm not saying like like I said, splitting hairs. Like he's still like my 14th or 15th guy. So
well, I'm going to disrespectfully disagree with your opinion.
Okay. All right.
No, I don't know. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I just, at some point, like, it's got to overcome whatever deficiencies that team has as a team. And I don't think they're all that close production-wise. I know one of them's averaging 28 and one of them's averaging 20, but if you look at the number of guys, it's sort of like it's like a bell curve, right? Like, it might only be 8 points a game, but the guys who are able to do that efficiently and consistently, that list is extremely small. And I understand, I like Van Vliet as a player, but it's just he's not in the same sort of production category as Levine has been. And the Raptors haven't exactly been good. I mean, they've been a lot better lately, but it's not like they've been some sort of world beater team either. So,
well, yeah, but I mean, they are 2 games ahead, and also, I mean, like Levine's just not a good defender. I mean, you can talk about like the counting stats, but he's just not a good defender,
Yeah.
But I'm again, he's had a really good year, and like I think he should be in consideration. And I'm not mad at you for not picking him.
I am very mad at you for not picking him.
Yeah, I know, I could tell.
Who did you have as your forwards? On the reserves.
Oh, I didn't even go by like forward guards or centers. I went with just players. So, but I had Middleton, Tatum, and then I don't know about Simmons. You'd probably convince me Levine instead of Simmons. But Simmons and Bam there.
Did you consider? And I know you said you kind of had him on your long list, but I actually had him on my reserves because I actually did go. I tried to go between like guards and forwards in my reserves, and the forwards were a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
But I had Vucevic, Randall, and Sabonis in there.
Oh yeah. No, those 3 all should have been considered. I had those on my list. I guess I didn't say Randall or Vucevic, but yeah, I don't know, man. Like Sabonis has kind of tailed off this year. Vucevic has gotten better, but that's also because their whole team is like hurt right now.
Yeah.
And then Randall, I don't know. I mean, his counting stats are great too. I mean, they've been better than expected. I mean, it's
that team kind of tailed off too the last few weeks. So
yeah. I mean, man, like all these guys are like pretty similar. They affect the game differently. But similar production.
It's funny in the East versus the West because I feel like the West, you're able to take into account so much of like think about the reserves we had in the West with. I know you had Conley in there. I didn't have him in there, but I can understand Conley, Mitchell, and Gobert. You think about like these really great basketball teams and the guys who have been driving forces, Chris Paul in there. And then you look at the East, and it's so hard to make that argument for like any of those players. You're just trying to figure out who amongst these bad teams do I want to put on an all-star team.
Well, there's only like 5 teams over 500, and the rest are below 500. So yeah, I mean it's hard, and I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that's how I went by it because there's so many guys that are like right in that same vein. Sam tiebreaker.
Yeah. He's gonna put Levine on there. You know it.
Tiebreaker for what position?
Who do you got as your last? Just do your reserves real quick if you have them.
Yeah, so so there's 8 reserves, right?
7.
Yeah, I think there's 8. 7. Okay.
7. Yeah, 7. Yeah. All right.
So I have, I didn't write them down, so I'm just kind of on a whim here. Jason Tatum for sure. Yep. So I had Jaylen Brown. So I have the 2 Celtics there because I put Harden and Beal in. I actually put Julius Randle. I just, as for because like kind of what JT was mentioning, I try to look at forwards and which ones because you can't have like all guards off the bench and whatnot. So I try to get some in there. So I went Bam and Randle. I do have Levine in there. I actually kept Kyrie out of the whole All-Star game because I just think he hasn't played in that many games, and I just he's obviously a guy that I would who's like on the outside looking in, but just barely. But I actually put like Trae Young in there.
That was gonna be my question to JT. Trae Young or Levine?
So I have Levine and Trae Young personally.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I guess I have Kyrie, so maybe that's
So I kept Kyrie off of mine too. I could only put one player on the roster that had quit on a team this year, and I chose Harden.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, JT. And then the other one was between Simmons and Sabonis. And it's really tough. I probably lean Simmons just because the Sixers are the number one team in the East right now. So I feel like I feel inclined to put 2 Sixers in the All-Star game. And Simmons' defensive numbers are just off the charts this year. I was watching a game not too long ago. They pulled up a graphic, and he was like first or second in like all the major categories in terms of like the advanced defensive statistics. So it's hard for me to keep him out. Sabonis, you can make an argument for, but to your guys' original point, I have Levine in over a lot of those guys. Another guy too that's I think worth mentioning that maybe doesn't get a lot of recognition is Malcolm Brogdon. Yeah. He's just a really good player, and I really wish the Bucks would have realized that sooner so they didn't have to pay so much for Drew Holiday, because I don't think there's such a huge drop-off between Holiday and Brogdon, and they would still have some of their bench intact and obviously all those draft picks. Yeah, so he's worth mentioning as well. And then obviously I'm a huge Sexton truther, so I got to give him a little love, but there's no way I'm putting him in.
Hey, just so we're clear though, like you guys think Kyrie's better than like Trey, Levine, like as a player, not just for this game, but as a player. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I'm cool with that.
Yeah. And let me pull up the standings here. Hawks are 11-50. Okay, so they struggled a little bit lately. They're 3-7 over the last 10, so they've been struggling lately. Trae Young actually kind of had a slow start too, but he picked it up as of late. But obviously their team's outside looking in the standings. So, but yeah, I'm still gonna give him the edge. And part of it's just I don't like Kyrie.
That's fair enough.
And then before we move on, guys, one real quick shout out that I think deserves recognition, but he should not be in the All-Star game. But he's played really well this year and took a lot of heat during the offseason, is Gordon Hayward. Hornets are playing pretty well, and he's having a really good year, so he deserves a little recognition at least.
Yeah,
he was on my list.
Yeah, I didn't have Hayward in there, but yeah, I had considered him. And one guy I don't want to really shout out, but I feel like almost has to be is Jimmy, because he's come back, and I think he's averaged like 25, 8, and 8, and really kind of brought the Heat back into a little bit of their former self, I think. So. Well,
yeah, he's also really been a good upgrade for your fantasy team, JT. Huh?
Yeah. Chris basically just gave him as like a throwaway, like dumping some salary, and he's come back and been an absolute monster. So I'm like, okay, I
think I told you guys on the last pod, like, watch out for Jimmy because they need to start winning, and he's gonna have to play a lot better. So, yeah, JT, you're definitely reaping the benefits of that
for sure.
And also you can, make the argument about his value too, just how they performed when he was out. So, I mean, that's another thing too. But they had a lot of injuries.
And really, just from a fantasy perspective, 25, 8, and 8, but with like 10 free throws a game. He's been like tops in the league in free throws since he come back too. So, I mean, he's a 4-category monster right now. He's been crazy good.
Yeah, I just hate how he doesn't shoot 3-pointers. That's like the only thing that, I mean, he'd be like one of the top like 10 players if he shot 3-pointers.
For sure.
All right, so real quick, guys, I'm just going to go through what we came out with rosters, and then tell me who you guys got, Eastern or Western Conference, if these were the lineups. So I'm just going to go starters. So Steph, Dame, LeBron, Kawhi, and Jokic in the West. And in the East, we have James Harden, Bradley Beal, Durant, Giannis, Embiid. Dylan, who do you think?
We gotta go to the West. I mean, LeBron's on that team.
JT?
I almost think you got to go to the East because you have more freakishly gifted one-on-one players, and that's what the All-Star game is. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of.
They're close.
Yeah,
but
it's really close. I'm gonna lean East. I don't think LeBron cares about the All-Star game this year. He's even said that. So.
That's true.
Who knows if he even puts any time in it. He might come off the bench 10 minutes a game. Who knows? So I'm going to go East too. I like JT said, just some really good one-on-one players. And for the Western Conference, you kind of have to – it's almost like live or die by the 3 with Steph and Dame and some of these guys. So, all right. Well, let's move on. That was kind of fun. I like doing the draft like that. That's pretty cool. So we'll move on, though. We'll go to our next topic, which is going to be, I think, a fun one as well. I'm excited to hear what you guys have. So we're talking about being the GM of the Timberwolves and how we would approach that position moving forward. It's really interesting. I hope you guys brought something unique to the table because just right off the top, we all know D'Angelo Russell. I think most of Minnesota's out on him now. At least the in the know fans, the more casual fans might still, like D'Angelo. Ryan Saunders, there's not much support going around Minnesota anymore for him. But yeah, I'm just excited to see how you guys approach this. I don't know who wants to start. I'll leave it up to you guys. But what do you think? We'll talk about first. Well, I'll let you guys get into it. Dylan, you want to go first?
Yeah. So I started with the players and trying to evaluate the whole roster. So I divided our guys into 5 categories. First is keepers. Second one is likes. Third is huge question marks. Fourth is I don't care about them. And then fifth is GTFO. So get them off the team. So
what's the difference between a question mark and you don't care?
So it's the difference between a Kogi and Jarrett Culver. Does that help?
Which one's which?
Well, I don't know what Culver's going to be, and I'm so confused. That I don't know if he should be in it if I like him or if I don't care. So
it's almost like a jury's still out kind of thing.
Yeah, and a Kogi's kind of like, he can be our 10th guy on the roster or he can be off the team. I don't give a shit.
All right.
Yeah. So, all right. So for my keepers, so these are the guys. When I say keepers, the guys that we should build around, give resources to, and make sure we, function or structure our whole team and our coaching decisions off of that. So my 4 keepers I got on the team is Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, McDaniels, and then Malik Beasley. So I want to get your guys. Do you have all 4 of those guys as keepers?
Well, so I had only separated into players I like and players I don't like. But once you kind of said how you were breaking them down, I was looking at my list, and those are the 4 I would say, yes, you have to keep. These guys are sort of, based on what the roster looks like right now, these are the guys you have to build around, and it's those 4.
Okay.
And I have 3 of those 4.
Jesus.
Okay, I'm gonna ignore that comment later. I'm gonna address that later. All right, so my second one is the likes. So guys that I think can be good role players for our team. That I would probably like to keep, but they're not like essential. I don't want to like build our team around them, but I like them as players. And those 4 are McLaughlin, Noel, Naz Reid, and then Vanderbilt. So I think they all add something to our team in their own unique ways. I don't think they're going to be like franchise cornerstones, but I think they can be good role players on our teams.
Who was the second guy you mentioned?
Noel. He was
second round pick last year.
Second round pick last year, yeah. And he's actually stepped up. I think he's scored in double figures in the last 6 games. And he's a good 3-point shooter. He's a good kind of spark plug off the bench, and I think he has some potential there. I wouldn't say he's going to be like a starter, but he could be a good role player for our team.
Sure.
Yeah,
JT, you got it?
I like that list. I threw Culver in there too as just a player that I like because you're right, huge question mark, but somebody I think we can actually, if he pans out, you got to see what's there. But I still like his skill set coming off the bench potentially. I do really like Jordan McLaughlin as a backup point guard. I think. Honestly, he looks like the best point guard on our team most nights, even with Russell in the lineup. I like Naz Reid as a backup center. And, I kind of forgot about Jalen Noel, but he's actually looked really good. I'm not that into Vanderbilt. I like the idea of having him on the roster just from a random spark plug, energy kind of guy. I heard him, I swear Jim Pete claimed that he could be a Ben Simmons type of player. I know. He's way too raw. He's way too erratic. When I watch him, the guy I think of is Mark Madsen. Which, I don't know if that's a good comparison or not, but he's just sort of frantic all the time in a really kind of destructive way sometimes.
I kind of see him more as a Montrezl Harrell. He's super energetic. He comes and gets boards. I mean, he can also on cuts, on offense rebounds, like affect the game when he comes in. So
do you think he's in the rotation on a good team?
No, but he's also like young, and I just think that I can see some like potential as like a bench unit guy. I'm not saying he's a good player yet. Like, by the way, just a disclaimer, I'm not saying any of these guys are good players yet. I just see them as a future asset or somebody that could be a good role player. So I see some potential with him.
Yeah, I guess for me right now, I've seen a lot of him play over the last 20 games. He's brought something we don't have, which is just competitiveness on most nights. But I just don't see him being a valuable player in a good rotation. So that's why I have a hard time really dedicating too many minutes to him at this point. But
okay, I feel that. So a Culver you have as a like though, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, you're right. He's a question mark, but he's still a guy that I see some promise in.
Yeah, I mean, he's improved this year, and he has gotten bigger, and he's more athletic. But it's just like I just don't know. I don't know what he's gonna be. That's my problem. I just have no idea like what role he's gonna play. I mean, I could see a 3-and-D if he gets his 3-point shot better, but I just don't know what he's gonna be. So that's my issue.
He's been so much like you. So you mentioned Jalen Noel, and last year Noel kind of came up from the G League a couple different times and really struggled, and you could tell it's sort of a confidence thing. And it feels so much like that with Culver a lot of times. It's just like it wanes even like within a game. Like it'll come and go, and like he'll look like a world beater one second, and it'll look like an absolute nightmare the next. So I don't. He's got to find consistency. That stroke has improved sometimes. There's been stretches in games where he's looked like he could be a good shooter, and then there's other times where it looks broken again. So I think, but it's been a step in the right direction. It's just been unfortunate. You kind of look at it around. Sam was right when he kind of compared him to like number 5 overall picks. And that's not really what you're looking for. And obviously he hasn't really come out of the gates strong. But if he could develop into something interesting, like you say, a 3-and-D guy off the bench, kind of a good component of our bench unit, I think that'd be plenty valuable to this team.
Yeah, well, and that's what Big Tom said too. My dad, he said that he has no confidence, and you can see that while he's playing. And he misses a shot, he puts his head down, and I mean, you got to develop that as a young player. So, I mean, there's still a shot. It's just he's been a little bit disappointing.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, sorry, Sam, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to real quickly say, as you guys were talking about Vanderbilt, you guys remember he was like one of the top recruits, and he was one of the most sought-after guys.
He's a Kentucky guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like the 5th overall recruit, and he was like a big-time AAU guy, like one of those. He wasn't like Zion or anything, but he was like, in that realm. And then he didn't do much at Kentucky. He went like way late in the second round of the draft. So I don't know, maybe he's starting to unleash some of that potential. He's like on a per minute basis this year. I haven't watched much of the Wolves game, as you guys know. Just don't get him out here. But just looking through some of those numbers, his per minute numbers are really good. So yeah, you might want to, I like, you had him in your light category, right, Dylan?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I think that's. So what was the next category that you had?
Well, I have the question mark. That's Culver. He's the only one in the question mark. The next one was don't care. So if they leave, they go. I don't really care. And that's Ed Davis, Layman, and then a Kogi. Because I think they're not bad players, but they're just really, really, really replaceable. Like. If they're a 10th, 11th, 12th guy on my bench, I don't really care. But I don't want them getting minutes, And I don't know. I just don't care.
All right. Yeah. And then, GT, go ahead.
I think so. I'm in the GTFO category for a Kogi at this point. He's sort of like Vanderbilt in the way that he brings energy, he brings competitiveness, but he's so lost on the offensive end. And he's not that good of a defender to mask those deficiencies on offense, especially when we have needs on the offensive end. So at this point we've given him enough run, and it's not working, and I'm out.
That's fair. That's really fair. So you could put him in the GTFO, but these are the 3 ones I got. I got Juancho, who we just signed, which is awesome. We just signed him. Rubio, he needs to leave town, and then D'Angelo Russell. I mean, and I think everybody that's watched this podcast knows our feelings on D'Angelo Russell.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just like it's so obvious that he's just not a winning player. I'm not sure if he will ever be a winning player. And I hate him on our team too. It's just like not fun watching him. So I just want to, man, just get him off, get out.
Did you hear the quote? So first of all, it was the back-to-back against it was the Thunder, right? When we played those 2 close games, and he basically completely derailed the offense in the first one, and like essentially single-handedly lost us that game. And then he hit the game-winning shot in the second one. And did you hear his quote? I heard this on Barrero, so I can't necessarily completely vouch for legitimacy, but did you hear his quote after that game?
No, I didn't.
He said that he was kind of talking about hitting that shot, and he said something like, yeah, these young players on the team, they probably haven't ever seen me hit those shots. They've probably just heard about him. Like, he thinks he's some sort of, like, urban legend. And it's like, I understand these guys have to have, like, an unbelievable level of confidence, but that's just straight up delusional. Like, you are not what you think you are.
And to that same point, I saw, again, I can't vouch for the credibility of it was like an Instagram post or something that I saw that was kind of like a meme, but had D'Angelo Russell, and the reason he wears number 0 is because 0 people can guard him. So.
Oh my God. Dude, I'm so sick of watching him. It's like he's bogs on the offense. Like it's always contested shots. I'm just so sick of him.
Who's a slower player, him or Rubio?
I don't know. Like I mean, so
who can't
I never
guard D'Angelo Russell.
And the other thing too is I'm about to go off on like I never liked Rubio, and I have no idea why I thought it changed like when he came back the second time, because he's the exact same player like he's always been.
But he hadn't
slow.
been.
What do you mean?
He hadn't been this guy the last couple of years for the Jazz and the Suns.
Maybe that goes to show our organization and our team. But I mean, I'm sure I looked at his numbers though, and he's like his best year was like with the Jazz, and he shot like 41%. Like he just is not a good like offensive player, and he's like lost all his flair to his assists. Like he can't finish. I mean, he can't shoot the outside shot. I mean, what does he do? And on defense, he's not even a good defender anymore. He used to at least get in like passing lanes with like ball hawk. He doesn't even do that anymore. I mean, he's just it's awful.
Do you remember how fun he was his rookie year? I mean, like when you talk about flair, like it was just exciting to watch him play. And you're right. There's none of that left. It's like it's been completely sucked out of his body.
Yeah, and I've never been that big of a Rubio fan because people were saying he was better than K-Love, which was just so annoying at the time because it's like, yeah, he makes some great passes, but he was never that good of a player, But yeah, it's gotten to a point where it's like, I think it'd be better for his health too if he was off the team. It'd be better for the Timberwolves, but also him is like, seems like all the fun's drained out of his body, like you said.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
All right, what else do you guys got? That's the whole roster. You got the GTFO. What do you want to talk about next, Dylan?
I was just gonna go towards like team needs.
Okay, go ahead.
So obviously we need a point guard because I want the GTFO. I had Rubio and Russell out off the team, so we need to find a point guard. And then also size and shooting. So I just kind of looked at our team. Towns is the only guy in our starting lineup above 6'5".
What?
Yeah, think about our starting lineup. We got D'Angelo Russell in there. We have Edwards. We have Malik Beasley, and then we have Okogie. Those guys are all like 6'5" or below. So like Towns is the only guy that's over 6'5".
That's a killer.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you even look on our bench too, Naz Reid's our center he's 6'9", but he's not 6'9". He might be like 6'8", 6'7". And Vandy's like 6'9", and the rest are small guards. So I mean, I know that the game is going towards more interchangeability, but size still does matter. And when you have that small of a team, it becomes a problem. And we're constantly, if you watch us on defense, there's mismatches at all times pretty much, and there's always guys guarding way too far up, like Okogie guarding the power forward, and that's just not a recipe for success. So between point guard, getting more size, we also need shooting. We're the 27th in the league in 3-point percentage. I think that will go higher once like Towns plays more, as he's obviously probably our best shooter. But we just need to get more shooting on the floor. So that's what I identified for our needs.
Yeah, I had not exactly the same. I had our current team needs at playmaking, rebounding, and shooting, which was essentially the same thing you did.
Yeah.
And that's so we've got so much money invested in the point guard position in Russell, but he brings so little in the area of playmaking. He's essentially just running incredibly slow pick and rolls so that he can take a 15-foot contested jumper. And that's really his offensive game at this point. And then you mentioned the size. I remember reading about how, the Bucks, when they sort of turned around, it might have been sort of in the later kid years or maybe right afterwards, but they'd been sort of run out of the playoffs, and they kind of decided that their main focus was more athleticism and more length. And that's kind of how they built their team. And we've got some long players for their position, but I mean, you're right, where in an overall kind of roster composition, we are not a long team, we are not an athletic team, and we need more of both. And the shooting wise, I think I'm not that worried about the shooting. I think we'll have two volume, really good 3-point shooters in Beasley and Towns. And actually McDaniels has been like a really good corner 3-point shooter so far. And I just think if you're going to address needs, it's going to be easier to address the first two than it would be the latter one, because you're going to have to overpay for shooting. And I just don't want to do that given kind of the other glaring needs that the roster has.
Yeah. And I think some of the size will kind of work itself out with athleticism once we start playing McDaniels more and put Edwards in there more, because those are two guys that are big for their position and long. It's just kind of addressing depending on what you think of McDaniels, if he's a power forward or the 3, addressing the point guard position, and then also the 3 or 4, whichever one you want to go with. So yeah, I think you're right. Some of it will address itself, but yeah, and especially with Towns coming back, that'd be nice. So.
Yeah. All right. So kind of, what are you proposing we do to address our needs through free agency, trades, whatever else?
All right, so I got 3 options. Like the first one's probably most likely because we're the Timberwolves. It's staying pat. So we're capped out next year. We don't really have too many assets that are tradable that really make sense for our team. So I could see us just staying pat, thinking it's gonna get better once we get all of our guys on the court at one time. That we're just gonna naturally get better, and as our young guys develop, we're gonna naturally progress. Which I think that's probably the most likely option. And I could even see us like keeping Saunders, just saying like, oh, we haven't got our team together. We need to see what we have before we need to coach.
For that point almost alone, Russell needs to get his ass back in the lineup, because we need to assess what they are together, him and Towns, because I feel like that's been the only thing that saved Saunders' job at this point, is that you could look at those two. And I think one of the Wolves beat writers just tweeted last week that to this point in their careers, Towns has played like 5 times more minutes with Kevin Garnett than he has with D'Angelo Russell. And Russell's been on the team for more than a year. And Garnett was like a 37-year-old playing 10 minutes a game for like half a season with us. So you have to get those two back together and at least figure out, okay, first of all, do these two players work together? And second of all, is our coach able to, and if they're not, then you probably have to make a coaching change, because we're too bad. We got 2 max players. You can't be that bad with max players and have a coach maintain his job over like a 3-year span. Just can't happen.
Yeah. So I think that's like most likely route. This is what I would do if I was the Timberwolves GM. I would actively shop Russell. I think
good luck.
Yeah, but I actually came up with some trade targets. Do you guys want to go over that right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So before you go into it though, I thought about this too, because we're all playing GM, right? And I have a hard time believing we get more than like a 2nd round pick for him. But I'm curious to see what you came up with him.
Oh no,
we have to give away draft capital.
If we get neutral assets, that's what I'm looking for. Like shorter deals, more.
Yeah, some bad team just comes in and takes on his contract.
Yeah. So I actually identified the bad teams in the league. So Detroit, Hawks, Washington, Kings, Houston, and the Magic for trying to trade them. So I'll give it the interesting ones first. What do you guys think about John Wall for Russell and Culver.
How many years does John Wall have left on his contract?
Same as Russell.
And that's how many?
I hate
two?
saying this. They're 2023, 2024.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, there's so like from what perspective are you asking our opinion about? Like from the
for the Timberwolves, would you do that?
Oh,
No,
in a heartbeat.
I don't think I would.
I would. Yeah,
See
if you're talking the same length of contract, I'd much take the much better player, which is John Wall.
That's what I was kind of thinking.
He's got injury concerns, and I don't know if he's going to. I feel like he would end up being disgruntled here in some way or another. I don't know. I don't think that ends well.
Well, if you pull off a trade like that, you're not really thinking about long term. So I mean, to me, I would do it just because I'd rather watch John Wall if I was a Timberwolves fan. But fair. I have no expectations that it's going to lead to anything down the road that will turn into.
Let's see if we've got other options that we think might.
Okay, yeah. So that was the big one. Well, actually, no. I'm gonna say that was the big one. The second big one was.
Good luck with trying to get the Rockets to sign off on that. But anyways, go ahead, because they're a playoff team. I mean, no way they take Russell.
Yeah, but you could also like make the argument like, hey, let's get a young guy in here. He's averaging 26 and 4. You know, his counting stats are decent actually. Like he's not that far away from Walls, and I mean, obviously, you have to think he makes improvements like on Houston compared to our team. But I mean, I'm just saying like it's not crazy. I don't think
if they're seeing Oladipo as a potential long-term asset, they probably see that as really redundant too. So I'm not sure. That probably throws a wrench in it.
Yeah. I'm just saying like I think it's not unrealistic.
No. I think as far as like a potential trade, I think it's possible. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do you got next, Dylan?
All right, Washington, Westbrook. Well, you have such a bad contract. All right, fine. Westbrook plus like a future like I don't know second or first for Russell and put some cap filler in there.
I like that one. I want Westbrook.
Oh man, I can't. So, yeah, I don't want anything to do with either of those players. Like, to me, I look at D'Angelo and Westbrook as like one and the same. So, to me, you're just trading. Just keep Russell at that point.
I don't think so. I think it's two. So to me, D'Angelo and Wall were a lot one and the same. Not necessarily in play style, but Westbrook will do one thing for you, and that's bring intensity, which is one thing I want to see be brought out of this roster on a consistent basis that D'Angelo Russell will absolutely not do, and Russell Westbrook absolutely will do, because if you don't get that out of the rest of the team, he will murder you. Like he will.
Well, one thing that you guys might be missing in all of this, because you guys both said, and we differ from this, but you guys both said you build a team around Cat moving forward. If you trade Russell, would that be the beginning of the end for Cat being disgruntled? Like, why would you go out and get Westbrook, who's very similar in many ways to Russell, contract, play style, all of that, and you're getting rid of one of Cat's best friends, who Cat's kind of already, I feel like, getting on the side of being disgruntled. So, I mean, that's one thing you have to keep in mind as well.
Well, I was kind of going through the fun ones first. I don't think they're like the best ones, but realistic. I went through the fun ones. Yeah. Right. Do you guys want to hear my favorite ones? Okay. Aaron Gordon and Aminu for Russell for the Magic.
Yeah. How many years does Eric Gordon have left?
I believe this is either his last year or next year's his last year.
Like a restricted free agent or something.
No, he's already got a second contract.
Yeah, I don't think he's. If Gordon's in the final year of his deal, it's a no-brainer to me. I'm pulling that like immediately.
I think he has one more year after this one, I believe.
They do have. I mean, they did just invest a bunch of money. What if we got Markelle Fultz back?
I feel like they like him too much.
Well, off an injury. I don't know. I guess they don't like Gordon, I'm sure, but I'm not sure how much long-term money they put into.
Eric Gordon just signed a 4-year deal, $75 million. So he's not a free agent until 2024.
Aaron Gordon or Eric Gordon?
Oh, Eric Gordon. You said Aaron Gordon. Okay.
Aaron Gordon, yeah, for the Magic.
Sorry,
yeah.
I thought. Okay. So Aaron Gordon, that's interesting. Now, I like him personally. I would probably pull that trade off, especially if you're keeping Towns, he's a good fit next to Towns.
That's what I was thinking.
And he's actually improved this year. He sucks because I have him on my fantasy team, and now he's out for like 4 to 6 weeks. But he's improved as like a passer and a playmaker as well. I mean, there was a couple games in a row where he was flirting with. One game he did have a triple-double, and then the other couple games he was flirting with a triple-double. So I guess I'm not sure of his contract situation, but to me, I much rather have Gordon than Russell.
Yeah, and like the Mina was kind of dead money. He's hasn't really played. Yeah, so I mean, it might make sense for them too, where it's like, hey, you get a young point guard that can that can play next to Foles in theory, and then they get rid of Gordon and then the dead cap of Minu. So I mean, I don't think that's out of the question.
They did just invest a first round pick in Cole Anthony too. I don't know if that would.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, that's true. Well, so that's one of them I like, and then the other one, gosh, there's actually 2 more. Do you guys want 1 or 2 more?
Yeah,
Both.
just power through 2 of them and we'll.
Okay.
React.
Gallo and Tony Snell for Russell.
I hate that one.
Yeah, not a big fan.
Unless Gallo's on like an expiring deal or something, but I don't want him long term.
Nah, he has like 2 or 3 more years.
No, I'm out on that one.
Okay, all right. How about Bertans, Robin Lopez, and Ish Smith for Russell?
No, I hate that one too.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that one at all.
All right, fine. Last one. Mo Bamba, Terrence Ross, Aminu for Russell.
I don't know that Bamba's interesting, but we just talked about like Reed being like a serviceable backup center, so I'm not sure that's like a huge need either.
Yeah, just fit wise, I'm not. The thing is though, if we can get rid of Russell, I pretty much do.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'd probably do it just to get out of Russell's contract if the Magic were willing to take it on. So in that regard, I would pull the trigger probably.
Well, that's a good point.
Yeah.
So Dylan, I haven't been that excited about any of your trade packages, but I haven't really thought about the fact that Russell wouldn't be here anymore. So for that, yes, I would actually probably take any of them.
Well, and that's my thing. I was looking at a perspective of he's like a negative asset.
Yeah.
So if we could get some neutral assets back for a team that thinks that he might have like some potential, like let's just do it. Get rid of him. Get it. A couple players and that might help, might not. Who cares? He's off the team.
Yeah. No, all decent ideas, honestly.
And that's kind of how I formed like my opinion about being like general manager of the T-Wolves, how I would approach it. So I did this a little different than you. I didn't go through the roster and say like this guy, keep this guy. I kind of just had like an overall plan and then incorporated like some players into it. So do you want me to go over that now, or do you guys did you have more to go ahead?
That's my option 3. I know what you're gonna say. That's my option 3.
Which one is that?
Blow it up.
Oh, you're saying okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's my option 3. Yeah.
So
I'm guessing that's what you're going for.
Well,
right?
So okay. I mean, you guys know how I feel about Towns. I'm not gonna, but so the first thing I think is obvious, and we're all on the same page. We just talked about it. Is you start shopping Russell immediately. You don't even really worry how that reflects on the team because he's just got no place in our future, and you're not going to get if you hold on to him, you're not going to get more of a return in the offseason. So it's like no point of waiting. I think you immediately shop Russell and just basically unload that contract just to give you some cap flexibility. You're obviously not expecting a return. You're just hoping some team out there is willing to take a shot on him, as you kind of highlighted there, Dylan. And then what I think you do, again, just from my perspective, if I were like in the seat right now of the Timberwolves general manager, and then I'm just kind of staying pat the rest of the season. I'm giving these young guys a bunch of minutes. There's no reason that Edwards should play another game this season less than 30 minutes. He should be out there starting every game. I want to give a lot of these young guys a lot of playing time, and then you get Cat back in the mix, see how he performs with some of these guys. And based on that, things might change. But, where I would go from there, and then you guys know how I feel about Town, so this is not news to you. But this is just how I feel, and like from my perspective, and I take similar situations into account from players that I deem are somewhat similar to Towns, or their situations have been somewhat similar to Towns. So I look at like Boogie Cousins in Sacramento. I look at Russell Westbrook a little bit in OKC, and whether or not you can really build a team around him. So for me, I would shop Cat in the offseason because I'm just worried that it's already becoming the beginning of the end. He's not, he misses a lot of time, and I know I'm not blaming the COVID thing for him. That's, obviously warranted. But, just the injuries, JT alluded to, the fact that he has been on the court with Russell that much. That's one concern. And then to me, it's the whole like dating Jordan Woods, which is fine and everything, but I feel like he's bigger than he wants to be bigger than Minnesota. Like he's already like branching out. He wants to be a star. He's obviously very active in the whole like social injustice movement, which is great. I'm not anything against that, but I'm just saying I don't know if he's that committed to actually helping establish a winning culture in Minnesota. And to me, if we continue to hold on to him, I think what we're going to get in return, once we start losing that leverage and he eventually does ask to be out or to leave or traded or whatever the case may be, we're going to get like pennies on the dollar for the type of talent that he has. So for what I'm doing...
I disagree with that, by the way, because you've seen what's happened when legitimate star players look at Harden this last year. It doesn't matter if everybody knows he wants out, if there are multiple teams that really acknowledge his talent, his, what he would bring to their, like a competitive playoff team. And, if you start a bidding war, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are.
Yeah. And, I somewhat agree with you there, JT, because it only takes one team to like overbid for him and try to like get that commitment from him. But if you wait till like the final year of his contract, it does, in general, take some of the leverage away from you because you don't know if you're going to get like a long-term commitment from him. So there's always that team that could still overpay and you could still get like a similar haul to if you were to shop him this offseason. So I think you're right in saying that. But I still think that while you have the majority of the leverage is when I would try to, because I don't believe you can build a winning team around him. And this is just my opinion, and I know you guys differ from it. But I really have concerns about his intangibles, his defense, his toughness. Like we just mentioned about him, his ability, if he were to go up at Embiid, I think Embiid would just bite him and have a game. So and the biggest thing for me is I don't know how committed he is to actually helping establish a winning culture in Minnesota. So I'm not going to go too much more on this about that, but every player usually takes that supermax, that second contract. So obviously he's going to sign it with Minnesota, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's like really that committed. I don't know if I've seen enough from him to believe that he is. Anyways, I think there'd be that team out there that would give you a big return, whether that's, and again, the reason why I wait to the offseason is because draft picks are established, draft order, all of that stuff. So we can get a big return in draft picks, or get a young asset that we can eventually build around. So that, depending on the offer you get, that would intrigue me and be one area that I would look at this offseason. Obviously, I'm firing Saunders, but I'm not doing it during the season because, I don't think there's a good point to. We're going nowhere this year. He's a Minnesota guy. At least let him finish out the season. And then he knows the writing's on the wall, so it's kind of like at that point a mutual parting. He knows he's probably not coming back. And then I would look for like a young coach who can, you can build around, who can grow with the team. Some young, energetic coach. No more like Rick Adelmans. I don't want to see any of those type of guys. I want to see like a young coach who can grow with the team, who showed maybe some promise in the G League or, as an assistant coach. Maybe even look overseas. I don't know. I would just find some guy like that, like a Nick Nurse, if you get lucky enough.
I would actually be really interested.
Becky Hammond.
Well, that'd actually be really fun. But assuming that the Wolves do not, they get Russell back in the lineup, things do not go well for another 20 games or something, I would actually really hope they would fire Saunders. I'd actually like to see what Vanderpool could do. There's guys that really hold him in a very high regard as far as NBA assistants go. And I think that would be an interesting, give him some run at the end of the year and see what he could do too.
Yeah, that's always an option. I worry about the optics a little bit just because, Saunders is like a Minnesota guy, and I think the players still like him. Like, I think Towns likes him. I think that if your plan and your guys' is to build around Towns, I think what you got to do everything to keep him happy, because I really believe he's like he knows next contract he wants out of Minnesota. Like, that's just, I have no basis for that. That's kind of my belief, and that's usually a pattern with big time players in smaller markets. And I really feel like he wants to play with his friends too.
Well, that's what Russell
I mentioned
is.
this to you guys.
At this point,
Russell and Booker or something like that.
At this point, if a Russell Towns pairing ends in us near the bottom of the standings every year, it's not going to matter if he's playing with his friends. He's going to go somewhere else. I think the only option, if you want to even potentially think about building around him long term, is to, if you can get rid of Russell, you sit down with Towns and you point at the standings and say, this is where we've finished. We've given this some run, and now we have to try something else. We want you to be the cornerstone of the franchise, and we just don't believe that D'Lo is it, and we're going to try to do everything we can to build something that works around you. And if you do that and it works, you have a shot. If you don't, it's not going to work, and you still don't have a shot. So...
Yeah, and Sam, I actually agree with you with looking to shop Towns, but I'm looking at that in 2 years, and then I wrote down a couple reasons why. Well, one, we've been through the same cycle where it's young players, no vets. They learn,
How do you build around him when no free agents are going to come and you have to kind of get lucky in the draft?
Yeah, but here I was gonna keep going. So same cycle, young players, better players creates better habits. If you're practicing every day against a good guy, you're going to get better as a player. Even you have to acknowledge, Towns is a good player. Maybe not a franchise, of course.
Yeah. For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then beyond that, it's kind of like the Charlotte argument with Hayward. It's like what are we going to do with that cap space? What are we going to do with that player? It doesn't matter if you don't think he's a franchise cornerstone. It's he is a good player to have on our team, even if and we'll still have the same ability to trade him in 2 years than we do now. And I don't think it's gonna really risk, unless he gets some major injury. I don't think it's gonna reduce the value of him in 2 years. So I think beyond getting better habits for young players, building our team, and then actually potentially maybe having a chance of being good if we get the right players, right picks around them, I think it just makes more sense to wait a couple years on that.
Yes.
He's under.
Right. Sam, you said that you don't think at this point you can build around Towns and build a winning team. I disagree with that. I think all that we've proven at this point is that he can't do it himself, which is not...
Nobody can do it themselves.
Yeah, right. So
other than LeBron.
Yeah, well...
Other than LeBron, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the only thing... it's just... the only problem is how detrimental that Russell has been to the cap space, because I think Towns, and I think... Dylan would definitely agree with this, that Towns you can have him be a max contract player on a playoff and a contending team. That's all that comes down to.
So it depends on who the other guys are, though.
Well, of course, because it can't be Russell. Obviously. But
we're 6 years into this experiment, and there's been no culture established. I think, just keeping it in Minnesota terms, I think about KG. KG established a winning culture here. We had the same resources, all that. We're 6 years into this experiment, and I was the guy who was clamoring before the draft. If we don't take Towns, I'm done with this team. There was a report that came out a week before that made me really nervous that we had interest in Jahlil Okafor. I was like, please, God, do not get that. Do not draft him, and Towns is the obvious pick. And for the first 4 years of his career, I was like, yeah, this guy's a superstar. He's all of that. But I just haven't seen the progression in the things that I really believe lead to winning basketball and establishing a winning culture. And that's some of the intangible things I need to see, like commitment. I need to see work ethic, toughness, and then just how he hasn't progressed defensively either, I think is a huge concern. So there's no denying his talent and the player he is. That's why I think you look to trade him, because you can get a haul for him. And I don't want like a Boogie Cousins type deal where we get like I don't even know who was in that deal, like a Buddy Hield or like a Solomon whatever the case may be, Solomon Hill or whatever. I just don't think he's I keep saying I don't think he's a winning player, but I just haven't seen, I guess, the progression that I would have liked. And I haven't seen the T-Wolves progress even a little bit. But that's not all on Towns, but I think he's partly responsible for helping establish the winning culture.
Yeah, so I'll keep this super short, or try to. Like, people in Minnesota have like the worst like views on our best players. Like KG. You guys probably don't remember, but like people were saying he was soft. They said he can't win. He can't win. He lost like 7 straight years in the first round. And people were saying that about KG. Like, that seems so stupid now. And even like K-Love, Towns, kind of same deal. It's like, all right, man, like look at like those players, and then look at like their second best player on the team. It's like I'm not saying they're like a top 10 player, but I'm saying they're not the problem. Like the organization, the coaching, the other players on the team are the problem. I mean, if you look at Towns, like other than the Butler year when we actually won and got to playoffs, like probably his best teammate was like Wiggins. It's like right. It's embarrassing.
But he's got, at some point he's got to be a part of the problem, because KG got us to conference finals. KG,
not until I guess I never heard the question. And Latrell Sprewell though.
Yeah, they finally got him good players.
Right, but he helped establish that winning culture. Like, I guess I've never heard the questions about his toughness, because he's always been a defense. Like, that's how he's made his like name for himself in the NBA.
Don't you remember that everybody was saying that he took too many jump shots? He didn't want the shot at the end of the game. Like that was a legitimate questions. I mean,
right. That's one thing. But that's not what my knock on Towns is. I don't expect him to take the last shot or anything.
I was more just saying how ridiculous like Minnesota fans are. It's just crazy.
I mean, I don't know. I just we'll see how it plays out. But anyways, we'll move on from that, because we can talk about this for a while. The last thing I wanted to say, as I was getting to before we kind of went off on that Towns tangent, is, if I were to trade him, depending on what I get, like a young asset or some young draft picks high in the lottery, and I use those to hopefully acquire some good young players and build around those. But for me, the guy that I'm more so building around is Edwards as opposed to Towns. And seeing what we have in him, and that's why I say he's got to be out there. He's got to be playing 30 minutes a night. And I don't, like I mentioned to you guys before, I don't draw conclusions until probably like year 3. So you got to see what you have in him. Yeah, no. So okay, you got to show me something though. You got to show me that you're at least getting better and you're progressing. And so I think a lot of what happens with the Timberwolves' future is dependent upon Anthony Edwards' development. And so I think more so than Towns, our future kind of relies on Edwards. And that scares me, but that's the kind of guy I'm focusing on building around, and then bringing in a whole bunch of young assets, maintaining cap flexibility, and hopefully developing some of these guys with a young coach.
Let me pose a question here, because we haven't talked about it at all, which is really ironic thinking about playing Timberwolves GM, but we haven't talked about the draft one bit. And like,
I don't want to.
Well, so there is, if we wind up one of those bottom 3 teams, or the worst team in the league, we do have, it's like a 40% shot that we keep that pick, which would be sort of absolutely game-changing, I think, in one way or another. And I think, honestly, you could almost use it as either, you could almost use it to move way down in the draft and package it with Russell to get rid of that contract and build around somebody else in that core, or you could almost use it as ammunition to actually blow up the roster and trade Towns at this point. And you have Edwards, you have McDaniels showing a lot of promise. A couple of top 5 picks in this draft would be a hell of a foundation to start with.
Yeah, so I didn't want to talk about that, because if we lost that pick, it's going to be devastating. Yeah. I mean, like, we're actually going to have like very little path forward. unless there's an internal development. But hey, Sam, you're gonna love this one. I thought another trade. If we were going to blow up the roster and trade Towns, what would you think about Wiseman, our pick back, and like Kelly Oubre for?
Oh,
for
I've
Towns?
seen that one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I mean, I would. We should not do that, but I would love that for both us and Towns. Could you imagine Towns, Steph like picking a role, and then Draymond helping Towns on defense? Like they'd be unbelievable. That's shooting.
I always say that there's always a situation that you can go to that will win. Like
would he not be perfect for them?
Yeah, no, he would be. But that's like kind of like the Kevin Love scenario. Like Kevin Love going to LeBron James. I was thinking about this yesterday, and if we did open questions, I might even use this as one of my open questions. Was like, how do you view Love? Like, I never viewed him as a winner. I viewed him much like I do Towns now. But the fact that he played with LeBron shed such positive light on him. But it's just the situation that he was in. I mean, honestly, it could have been Thaddeus Young, and LeBron would have still made the finals. So, I mean, well, he did make the finals with Timothy Mozgov and Tristan Thompson when Love was out. So, but yeah, there's always a situation. So I guess, that would be Towns' situation.
The one thing that would be really depressing about that is just, pumping more lifeblood into the dynasty that is the Warriors at this point. And also thinking about essentially what that trade will mean, which it'll end up meaning that we traded Wiggins and Towns for Wiseman, Oubre, and that's it. Like, that's what we got for Towns, really. So that would be really depressing from that point of view. But if we did, if we did lose a pick and it was like a 4th or 5th overall pick, and then, if we took somebody like Sharif Cooper or Jalen Suggs with that pick, thinking about like what our starting lineup would look like is actually kind of exciting, because it'd be like one of those two guys, Malik Beasley, Edwards, McDaniels if he fills out a little bit, and Wiseman. It's gonna be a bad team, but it's gonna be really fun.
Or if we got like the number 1 overall pick, kept Towns, Cade Cunningham,
yes,
Malik Beasley, Edwards, McDaniels, and Towns, we'd be, oh my God, I'd be back on the Timberwolves train.
Another number 1 pick would be unbelievable. But
I mean, we'd actually have like maybe the most exciting young core in like the whole league.
Well, we've said that before.
I know, but this time it's gonna work.
Yeah. Are you guys a little bit concerned about Towns being committed to Minnesota?
Not really. I don't expect him to be at this point. So whatever we're getting out of him is bonus.
Yeah, I'm not saying I blame him if he's not.
No, I mean,
I'd want to go play in LA or New York.
Yeah, I mean, I'd date Jordan Woods if I had the opportunity.
I don't know. Hopefully Meg doesn't watch this.
She's in the other room. She'll probably hear me.
She's got COVID, so she can't come out and say anything.
We see her walk by with a suitcase.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean,
and also one thing we didn't mention either. So, and I know we got to wrap up this segment, but we didn't talk about really like free agents either, which has never really been a strong suit, especially with our cap situation. This is kind of dependent on getting out of some of that cap. So I kind of looked through the possible free agents next year, and there were a couple of names that kind of drew my eye. So one that was actually a trade rumor last year that didn't pan out, or during the draft, was John Collins, which I actually think he would be a good fit next to Cat. And then I actually like the thought of Lonzo Ball being a point guard with this team to bring some perimeter defense and like some just straight up playmaking to the position. Not exactly the sexiest moves, but moves that I feel like would be somewhat in our obtainable stratosphere.
I actually kind of like those. I think with John Collins, though, our interior defense would just be god-awful. But Lonzo Ball is intriguing.
I think Lonzo would come here. And then also I might have like some Rubio flashbacks
well, yeah,
with the shooting. But no, he's actually been better this year and last year for shooting. So.
Yeah, he's really improved lately, but he was really struggling.
Yeah,
talk about losing your confidence. He was, I don't know if you guys saw that, just that one video that kind of highlighted that, where he was driving in the lane, had a wide open path to the bucket. He could have went in and just dunked it, and then he just threw it back. It was, just I think a perfect play that epitomized his current confidence level. But he's played better lately, so so that's good. Let's go ahead and move on, guys. I think we beat that one to death. It'll be interesting to see how actually things shape out.
I wouldn't be surprised if Rosas uses that as a blueprint for the future Timberwolves.
He might, yeah. I think he's gonna have to probably watch that a couple times just to make sense of everything that was going on. 3 different perspectives there, but yeah. Before we move on, just one last quick question: what do you guys feel about Rosas moving forward? How do you guys feel about him?
It's so early. It's hard to say. Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't like. I see why he did the Russell trade. Like, I don't really knock him for that. Like, I didn't like Russell, but I mean, I get it.
To this point, I think the Russell trade is a huge black eye. But the positive things he's done, the Malik Beasley signing looks great. I guess
the trade to get him.
Yeah, the trade to get him. Hernan Gomez signing, not so much.
God damn it.
And then I still like the Edwards pick. I know Ball has flashed and he's a bit more of a media darling, but Edwards I think will pan out and be a good pick. And then the McDaniels pick looks like it could be absolute gold. So so far I think it's been a pretty even result, but it's been kind of a wild swing between the highs and lows. But I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of it could just hinge upon how Edwards develops. So if they got something in him that they can build around, then you forgive some of the shortfalls that he has with like the Hernan Gomez signing and Russell trade, things of that nature. But all right, well, let's move on to our outros, guys, before we get out of here. Dylan, we'll go ahead and start with you. I know you had some songs that you wanted to bring up.
Yep. So we got 3 bops or flops. So I got three songs I want you guys to. I asked you guys to listen to it beforehand, and if you guys like them or not. So the first one was "Oh Yeah" by Young Thug feat. Hydora. And this is one of my favorite songs, like actually all time. Like every time it comes up on my randomly on my playlist, I just get happy. It's like a song like delivered to God to make my soul feel good, and that's what I feel about it. So I would say probably it's a bop. What do you guys think?
You'd say it's probably a bop?
It is a bop.
Okay. I'm gonna unfortunately I'm gonna probably label it a flop. But it started out sort of like I was digging it like the first minute, and then it never really became any more, and I got bored of it by the end of it. So that was kind of my problem. It just didn't really build to anything. It just sort of felt like it stayed where it was with the vibe that it had, which was fine, but I wasn't digging it a ton.
That's fair.
Yeah, I can see maybe if I'm like in a really mellow mood, like it'd be kind of like fun to listen to. I'm going to go with JT though. It's a bop. I think the lyrics are just so simple. Like, did a 10-year-old write that? Quite honestly, like some of the lyrics, I was like, wow, that's
Sam. You listen to
stupid.
You listen to like Taylor Swift. I love Taylor Swift, but it's more about
Taylor Swift's the best. How can you?
It's more about the vibe than the lyrics, like for any song.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that, but like when I think of like talent, who's like Taylor Swift versus this guy,
they say Young Thug is like a musical genius, so I don't know if this is a good argument to use.
I haven't listened to enough, so maybe there's some creativity there. But as far as this song goes, I couldn't get into it enough to label it a bop. So I'm gonna go with JT on this one and go flop.
And I didn't hate it, but I think it just sort of reinforced in my own opinion of him, which I like him a lot as a feature, because it just I don't like a whole song of him, but I think he actually brings a lot to particular songs in the right context.
I feel that. Okay. All right. So second one, Gang Signs by Freddie Gibbs featuring Schoolboy Q. And this is like a smooth West Coast rap with those guys just gliding on the beats. And obviously I picked a bop for this too. What do you guys think?
Well, I hope you picked bop for all of these.
I did.
Came up with.
I did.
I'll say of the 3, this would be my bop if I had to pick one. It's more of my style. Yeah. I didn't mind it. I thought Schoolboy's verse was really good. he's out of all the artists that that are featured in these songs, or there's 5 different artists. He'd be my favorite anyways. And I guess this is more my style. I didn't think it was bad. I didn't particularly say, oh, this is a great song, but I'll give this one a bop. It was all right.
Oh yeah.
I'd agree on that one too. So this is probably my boppiest of the 3. But I like Schoolboy Q too. Like Studio is like one of my favorite rap songs of all time. So
yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah, so I was digging this one a little bit too.
Yeah, I knew you guys wouldn't like the last one, but I just like I like the dirty, grimy, like South rap, and I know a lot of people don't like that. So Key Glock's "Off the Porch" was my last song of the week for me.
Yeah, this is just an absolute major flop. Like,
okay,
this was so bad. Like, I had to fast forward many times. I don't know how you can. Man, I don't know. It's not relatable at all either.
It gets me pumped up. I want to go rob steal. I want to go grind, man. Like, it gets me pumped up.
One of the top comments in the YouTube video that I watched was, "This makes me want to rob my own house."
Yes, that's how I feel too. I love it. That's the feeling I was going for, man. I get in the gym and I'm just like, man, I'm gonna put up some weights.
Yeah, that was a flop for me too. It was just, there wasn't enough to it. Like, at least the vibe of "Oh Yeah" was sort of like kind of kept you with it. But like Sam said, I mean, there are times, I guess, when unrelatable lyrics are like, you can kind of feel the story in them, but other times it just sort of feels like gratuitous, and that's kind of how I felt about it.
Oh, by the way, I think we should start a Spotify RoundballRadio playlist.
I feel like you would dominate that.
Well, I mean, I'm just, maybe.
We'd have all ends of the spectrum covered, that's for sure.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, JT, what do you got for the outro?
Not a whole lot. So I mentioned, I guess, in the All Fired Up that I'd picked up a Xbox Series X, so I've kind of been bouncing around some different games on that. And lately I've been playing a game called The Medium, which is a horror game, which is not exactly like my genre of choice. So I've been kind of like trying to make my way through some of that, but I've had to like keep the shades open while I play too, because I'm just too scared of it. So I'm gonna see how far I get in that, but it probably won't be too much further, quite honestly.
Wait, so what did you get?
Series X, Xbox.
Okay, is that like the new next gen type?
Yeah.
Xbox.
It would be the comparative to the PS5. They've got another lighter version too that's not meant for like 4K. That's the Series S, but.
So the only game that would probably get me out of retirement is NCAA football, but I'm hearing that I might have to get like a next-gen version. Is that true?
Well, they already came out, so this was part of what bummed me out about the NCAA football news was that they've already said it's not coming this year. So
yeah,
I would guess they'd still end up making a last-gen version, but I can't say for sure. There's just so many people that still have PS4s and Xbox Ones that it seems kind of stupid at this point to not make it for both gens consoles. And generally sports games come out on both gens for a long time, so
if I have to spend a couple hundred just to be able to play NCAA football, I'm on board. So
dude, it can be worth it. I told you guys I still got a PS3 for NCAA football 14, so it's the only reason I still have that console.
Yeah. So it would actually be a good strategy on Sony's part to come out with the next gen right around the time NCAA football comes out, as long as the next gen is NCAA is only available on the next gen.
Yeah, that would move consoles
system.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So for me, I know this is a basketball podcast. We often talk about the GOAT conversation quite a bit. LeBron, MJ, whatever side you fall on, maybe it's someone else. I would be reluctant not to mention Tom Brady on this podcast. I've been a huge Denver Bronco fan most of my career, so I've never really rooted for him because he's always been a rival. We've played in many big games against the Patriots, some of which we won, some of which we lost. But to me, like what he did this season is one of the most remarkable sporting feats that I've ever witnessed in my entire lifetime. I don't think he's just the GOAT of National Football League. I think he's the GOAT of GOATs. I mean, we're talking about the ultimate team sport, as it's dubbed, the NFL, and to have 7 Super Bowls and to do it in your first year with the Tampa Bay at age 43, during a global pandemic when he had limited time to work out with his receivers and kind of gain that continuity and that chemistry. And then to look at who he had to go through to get there. He went to Washington. They weren't great this year, but they still had a very good defense. He went on the road, beat them. Then he goes and beats Drew Brees in New Orleans. He beats Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, and then he goes in against the defending champions and the best player in the NFL, as many believe, Patrick Mahomes, and he beats them quite easily. It was just one of the most impressive things that I've ever witnessed, and I think it's, he's the GOAT of GOATs. So I would be reluctant not to address that on this podcast. So to me, that's my outro. Any thoughts?
No, I mean, it's
I know,
fair.
Dylan, you're not the biggest fan, but
He's amazing. I mean, he's incredible. I mean, I don't know about the GOAT of GOATs, but he's definitely in the football GOAT. It's like not even close.
It does sort of make you wonder, like, because we've seen so many sort of generational quarterbacks come and go and win a couple of Super Bowls. For him to kind of do what he's done over his entire career, you wonder how undeniable his career was. Like, if he would have been drafted by any team, is there any path that would have prevented him from winning multiple Super Bowls? I don't know. It's hard to say.
yeah, I think the only thing would have been was opportunity, because Drew Bledsoe got injured, which gave him an opportunity to play. So maybe with some other team with a good quarterback, he get drafted late in the 6th round to a really good team. That opportunity may not have presented itself, at least not in his rookie year. So that might have played a role in it. But I mean, good God, this guy is just like he's gonna. I don't see any slowing down. Like, if you watched any of Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger this year, both age 40 or right around age 40, I can't remember what Big Ben is off the top of my head, but these guys could not throw the ball 10, 15 yards down the field. Brady still delivers the ball with velocity 20, 25 yards down the field. I mean, there was the one play, the touchdown to Gronk, the second one, I mean, that was a laser from like 20 yards out right into the back corner of the end zone. But then there were a couple other plays where he was throwing it like 15, 20 yards downfield, and it was just a frozen rope. And it's like he's showing no signs of aging when all these other guys are just, you can tell that they're just done. So it's just incredible. Makes me want to eat healthier and like work out and have avocado ice cream and all that kind of good stuff. So I just thought I would mention that because I've always been someone who's enjoyed greatness. Like LeBron's my favorite player. I love watching like Fed and Nadal and Tiger and all the great players in their sports. And Tom Brady's undeniably the best in football. So this was kind of nice this year where I was able to watch him as not a rival and actually kind of like that Buccaneers team. So, yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's all we have today, so we can go ahead and get out of here. Before we do, were there any last thoughts you guys had?
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day. Yeah. I better let you guys get to it because, well, I don't know with the whole COVID thing, Dylan, if you can do much, but JT, anything planned?
No. We were sitting on the couch this morning, and then Lauren actually walked downstairs, and she's like, "Did you tell each other Happy Valentine's Day?" And we're like, "Oh no, crap." So that should tell you exactly where we're at.
Yo, Meg got me a little bonsai tree.
That's so cute. It looks like a little tiny regular tree.
I know. I was like one of my favorite gifts I ever got. The vibes in this room are unbelievable now with this feng shui from the bonsai tree. So.
Is it gonna grow?
I don't know.
I think it gets to be a full-size tree.
Yeah.
You have to move it outside at some point.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping for, honestly.
Oh, man. That's been funny. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have today. So we'll conclude this episode of Roundball Radio. We'll be back probably next week, maybe 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks we have the Open, so we won't be back then. So maybe we'll get in one next week. We'll talk to you all then. So thanks for joining and have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.